Hello all. This is Bonnie Start. I was just going to take some time to go over a few things in our Leo site. I wanted to start out to reminder due dates in your Leo site. You can check the calendar. It does give all the due dates, but please keep in mind that once your assignment is due, starting at the next day from the due date, I will deduct 5 points for every day that your assignment is late. So I just go to a maximum of 50 points. After that, as long as you've turned it in, you will never get less than a 50 on an assignment. So keep that in mind. But try to get them in much sooner than that. I wanted to touch bases a little bit on the Weebly link that is here under week 1. And on the Weebly link, you will find just some basic information. And I've got some little lessons in here. So I'm going to start out looking at LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I use that simply because I can't promise that how you'll be able to get in touch with me after the class is over. So you can always go to LinkedIn if you have joined with me as a guest or as a friend to me there. All right, I want to talk to you about sentences and how they are created. Clauses is where we begin. This is the first point of sentences. A clause is a group of words containing a subject and a verb. When you're little, your vocabulary gradually increases, but as we get a little bit further, we start working about clauses. Now, there are two types of clauses, independent and dependent. An independent clause is one that can stand alone. A dependent clause is one that can't stand alone. So if you look at this one, I like to read, no problem. But if I say, since I like to read, everybody's heads are tilt to the side and you're going to say, yeah, what else? There's more to that. That's a dependent clause. It needs to be connected to an independent clause in order for it to make sense. All right, another name for in the independent clauses is simple sentence. This is your most basic independent clause. It doesn't have to be just one or two words. It can have a lot more. We've got adjectives, adverbs, so on and so forth. And in fact, you can go here and there is a 239 word simple sentence. It's not a great sentence, but it's a correct sentence. So go have a look at that when you on your own time. So simple sentences are just a subject and a verb. We then have compound sentences. A compound sentence is two or more independent clauses. You can add as many independent clauses as you want, as long as you punctuate it correctly. But let me go through the 3 basic types of compound sentences. If you put your simple sentences together incorrectly, you get a read-on sentence, or you might get a fused sentence. I read a book, it will. That is going to be called a run-on sentence there. All right, there are 3 basic ways that you join independent clauses together. The first method only requires one thing to connect them, and that is a semicolon. The second one contains 2 items, and that is an a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunction, the acronym for that is fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. The words that make up your coordinating conjunctions. Um, so comma, fanboy. Your third method takes three things. An independent clause, a semicolon, semicolon, conjunctive adverb, independent clause. Your conjunctive adverbs are your fancier words, and an acronym that I've found for that was hot mamas. Things like however, otherwise, therefore, moreover, although, meanwhile, and such. They're your 75-cent words. So it is three things: semicolon, conjunctive adverb, or hot mama, and a comma. All three or it's incorrect. All right. This one, I have a dog named Maggie, semicolon, she just turned 17. I have a dog named Maggie, comma, and she just turned 17. Without the comma, it's a comma splice. Without the coordinating conjunction, it's a run-on. I have a dog named Maggie, semicolon, moreover, comma, she just turned 17. Those are all three compound sentences. The complex sentences are sneaky. Complex sentences contain an independent clause and a dependent clause. A dependent clause is when you take a perfectly good sentence, but you add a subordinating conjunction to it. And when you add that subordinating conjunction, also considered a spoiler, you take a perfectly good independent clause and you spoil it so it can no longer stand alone. I read, but since I read, a dependent clause. If you have a dependent clause all alone, it is a fragment, or it's one of the terms of fragments. All right, with independent clauses, with the complex sentence, independent and dependent. So there are some different ways of adding them. I got a Kindle for Christmas since I read a lot. Really helps me when we go on vacations because I can carry a lot of books with me. But independent clause, dependent clause, no punctuation. However, if I reverse that sentence, we will need a comma. So since I read a lot, comma, I got a Kindle for Christmas. Dependent clause, comma, independent clause. Be very carefully aware of that. All right, your compound complex is going to, of course, contain a dependent, an independent, and another independent. So here we've got many years ago when Tony, our Jack Russell Terrier, was lonely after Muffin died, comma, he adopted Maggie, comma, a white West Highland Terrier, semicolon. However, comma, they both like babies, so they babysat Caroline and all my grandbabies. All right, here's a sneaky semicolon rule here. I drive my favorite car, a red convertible, but I don't drive it in the rain. Now this is just another way of saying my favorite car, a red convertible. Sometimes if I needed it, it would not have the comma, but because I do need it for you to know which car I'm talking about and why the second part. Okay, normally it would be comma, comma, but because I've got a compound, what I do is I upgrade that second comma and make it a semicolon. So it's just a sneaky rule, but it's a good one to know. All right, Oxford commas. I think I mentioned this in at least one person's paper. The Oxford comma, also known as the serial comma, is when you have a series of 3 or more items. You set off each one, including the one before the and, with a comma. Here's another sneaky semicolon rule. When our list has commas in it, we have to upgrade our list to semicolon. I enjoy traveling. So far this year I have been to Swanee, Georgia, Annapolis, Maryland, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Duck, North Carolina. Now we do put Swanee. Normally you would put a comma between items in a list, but because I've got these other commas here, we upgrade this one, the one between the items, to a semicolon. And as you can see, with an Oxford comma, I invited strippers JFK and Stalin. Without the Oxford comma, we invited the strippers who are JFK and Stalin. So be aware of that. Commas with an introduction. If you have a short introduction, the comma could be optional, but when it's 3 or more words, it is required. And watch out. Let's eat Grandpa versus let's eat Grandpa. Correct punctuation can save a life. Parallel structure. Parallel structure is when you are trying to keep things in the same grammatical pattern. I like to swim, to walk, and to dance. I like swim, walking, dancing. We keep everything in the same format. That's parallel structure. There is a section on vocabulary and other points, and I keep adding to this, so take some time to have a look through here. Your resume. Again, I'm not going to go through this. This is just some basic information. So take some time, have a look through these areas in Weebly, and let's improve our writing. All right, folks, let me know if you have any questions.